I gotta say, I'm a little bit nervous for this one. I don't know why. I honestly feel like this podcast could go in literally any direction. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm excited. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna cut the front end of this off. Welcome to another episode of Ask Infinity. My name is Jordan Lindo, your host, and today's Infinity is Ariane.
Yeah, it's me.
Okay, so Ariane, I like to give you a moment to just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, creatively and otherwise, so that we can just get a sense of who you are before we move forward.
Okay, well, my name is Ariane Saffron, and that's my given name. I am, the word that I use, and this now is galactic shaman, and I travel to other dimensions and I see through the matrix, and I translate what I see into art and healings for other people who are connected with the mass awakening.
Okay, so we got to unpack that because that was a lot.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so for people listening, right, you said you travel through the dimensions.
Yes.
Like how do you do that?
Well, the beginning of my journey, I was actually very, very sick. I developed genetic arthritis, and I was actually bedridden from it. I was also under a lot of stress and strain from a lot of toxic life decisions that I had co-created. And I got so sick that I couldn't even lift up my body anymore. I couldn't eat anymore. And as I got sicker and sicker and thinner and weaker, I started spontaneously leaving my body. And what would happen is I would go to these different dimensions or just hover around my body. One day I flew out as an eagle, like really fast, like slingshot out of my body and then back down again. I would wake up in other dimensions, other planets. I would wake up on spaceships. I would connect with celestial beings, forest beings, all these different interstellar beings and shapes and forms and spaces and places. So my journey wasn't to astral travel and to leave, it was to learn how to come home again and come back into my body. So that's where it started for me. That's where the big healing journey started for me. I'd always connected with the alternative realms.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because like to me, when I hear that you started going on these journeys, immediately the first thing I'm thinking is the very first time this happens, like what's the conversation that you're having with your inner self? Is it like, oh my God, this is happening? Or I don't know what's happening, I'm panicking? Was there any level of fear? Like, what was your experience? Walk us through that.
I would definitely say I was fearful, for sure. Fearful because it was so unknown. I didn't feel like I was in danger from that aspect. There were other things that made me feel in danger, like connecting with the lower vibrational beings. They are not good with boundaries. So that took a lot of work on my end to create that safety between me and them. Honestly, my stress and my illness was so extreme that I stopped thinking, which is such a strange space to be. I was just in such a deep surrender of the moment because everything was so unique, so different. I didn't have anything to go back on. And I think the thing that I feared the most was openly communicating about it with people. I was afraid to be coined different mental illness terms, which I've since learned that in the whole psychotherapy, psychology community, that a lot of these things that happen to people, they're considering, as opposed to labeling people with mental illness, they're calling these different experiences pre-onset shamanism.
Yeah. Now that you bring that up, I totally agree. I feel like, and you can let me know if you resonate with this at all, but I feel like a lot of people have experiences that we just don't understand. And we don't have the containers to kind of help these people understand their experiences. And then we just throw them in these hospitals because it's beyond the scope of what we can offer. in traditional medicine. And so they just kind of waste away with all of their gifts that could be, contributing to the planet.
Oh, this is such a deep passion of mine to, for my own journey to, the first avenue for me was science. And I read a book called The Source Field Investigation. And this book described all these different scientists who had discovered information to prove the source field exists. And each scientist in this book, each chapter represented a different frame, like the emotions of, for example, the first chapter was the man who invented the lie detector machine. His machine was sensing emotions from the plants when he poured hot water into the plant because he was just emptying a cup of tea. So it starts about like how this machine could detect the emotions of the energy field and how that it was more than just humans who had emotions. And then there was talks about how a lot of great scientific discoveries or, eureka or aha moments throughout history spontaneously happens with multiple people at the same time. It's not just one person who discovered the theory of relativity or gravity. And then moving forward, the chapter that really got me was the chapter on photons. And that's actually kind of where I ended it. And the description of the photons was so potent for me because I realized these lights and shapes and movements and things that I was seeing with, I was seeing photons. And the chapter described how our bodies contain a photon replica of every part of our body. And that's basically, in the healing world, they would call that the Akashic records. And so this photon body is a DNA replica. And so our entire framework of who we are is physical and non-physical, even on a scientific level. And they were showing studies where there was a man who had lost his brain from some type of brain injury, but he was still focusing and doing things as though his brain was there. He still had the photon replica of his brain and his body was still responding to that. And then how our eyes and our pineal absorb photons in the same way. So this was teaching me that when my eyes are closed and I was seeing what I was seeing, that I was seeing something that was tangible and real. And so that really helped me. The science was the first avenue. And the deeper I went into science, I started finding ancient traditions. So I'm a mixed person. Like I carry the blood of indigenous peoples, is from Turtle Island, as well as Irish, Scottish, French background. And so once I started discovering these photons were real and that they were a part of the relationship of the universe and everything around us, and that everything contained these photons, and that everything was made up of geometric patterns with these photons, and the source field between us was reading these photons, and our intuitive body was reading these photons, and my pineal was reading these photons, I realized that what I was experiencing was actually a part of the human design. And I had just been programmed to believe that it didn't exist or that it was, hokum. So this really helped me. The deeper I got, I started seeing spirit. I started seeing creator. You go deeper and deeper and deeper, and it's just source energy. And through that, I saw 3 shamans sitting in my vision. And I knew I had to go to my indigenous roots to really help myself ground this greater kind of galactic invisible field information into this now. So.
Well, you're kind of segueing into the next question I was going to ask, which was, this is a lot. Like, I'm sure that you're in a very integrated place now, but
yeah.
For the average person listening, like, this is like next level. Maybe they'll never get to this space of understanding even what we're talking about here. But like, did you have people who helped you along the way kind of deal with what it is you were experiencing, or what you were experiencing?
I was really rejected at first from the healing community and the holistic community. And I think my experiences, because I was experiencing so many gifts, They didn't feel like gifts to me at the time. I was overwhelmed. I was like, oh, there'll be a community waiting for me. Cause like I meant like we're aligned. And I know I felt like, so I reached out to these different communities and I was rejected. I wasn't really welcomed. It was kind of like sink or swim. Like I've been meditating for 60 years. You think, like how are you doing this when I've devoted my life to this? And so I was at this event one night I was invited to, and it was like a soul group event, and this woman was channeling these soul, I think there's a soul group called Abraham Hicks. So it's similar to that. And it's supposed to be like a group of 200 souls with one consciousness, and she's channeling them and she's in her ethereal state and one with this information. And I talked about the lower vibrational beings because they were really attacking me. I felt I attacked anyway at the time. I mentioned in the beginning, the lower vibrational beings are really bad with boundaries, like really bad. And I said some things and I explained like, but I'll feel them. They're all around me. And with my eyes open, I'll see their silhouette. And when I'm with my eyes closed, I can see them perfectly. And I just started describing all these things. And so a woman in the group suggests, she's like, I know the person for you. And so so she called up a woman named Teresa Rosa, who became my first friend and mentor. And she's a metaphysical mentor. I never met her in person, but we were for the first year. And so we were on the phone that night. She could see that I had about 200 Indigenous ancestors around me. Up until this point, I never really told anybody that I was mixed Indigenous because I don't look it, and I just didn't want to deal with that I had to explain myself to people. And so she saw them all around me. She saw the aliens. She saw the star beings. She saw the darker beings. I'd also attracted, where I live was the War of 1812, and it was also a lot of the Underground Railway was here. So I was attracting a lot of people from that time who had passed and were looking for help crossing over. I didn't know what to do, but she saw all of them. So she just blew my mind. I was like, okay, we need to stay connected. And she really helped me, and she helped me define my first perimeter.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, you're getting bombarded by all these lower vibrational beings. It's like, how do you even begin to set a bound? Like, how do you even communicate with the lower dimensional being? What does that communication look like?
Get away from me. What are you doing? Stop punching in the air and there's nothing there. Like, leave me alone. And then, so that was the beginning of it. And, it's been a lot of work, Jordan. Like, I'm literally sitting here to you at such a different place than I was in the beginning of my journey. It's been years of work, and I would work almost every day at this. I still do. My day begins with prayer and calling in the directions and those perimeters of safety, and just that big checking in my internal space, my external space. And so it's still a lot of work, but in the beginning phases, so my mentor at the time had also never met anybody who had connected with so many beings. That was also unique for her. And so we were, with her wisdom and what the connection I was experiencing, we explored and learned a lot together. So including in that, not long after I met her in February. In that May, I went to my first sweat lodge, and I built a sweat lodge with an Ojibwe elder named Del Haskell on a medicine woman's land named Linda Rose, Black River. And Del taught me some light warrior techniques where I could create these different vats of acid. You almost have to have the mind of a child with a crayon, and anything's possible. Like, we're already in a virtual reality. It's happening all around us. So it's just, what are you aware of? And within that virtual reality are photons, and photons are consciousness, and they can be pulled into any moment, just like a sponge sucking up water on a counter. So once you're aware of that, you just have to have some freedom with it. And that's where anything's like possible. I mean, I grew up a gamer, I grew up a Trekkie. So I was, I watched this show called Thundercats. I was ready to be an intergalactic warrior.
You're like, you're like right on it. Because I was about to say, I need to understand young Arian coming up as a woman. Like, are you popular? Are you on the outside of, like, are you on the outskirts? Like, are you kind of hanging with, like, who is your company, in high school, and how are you, developing as a young woman?
Wow. I've had many, many, many friends come and go over my life. Yeah, I mean, so I found myself at a very young age living on my own and responsible for myself, and just kind of I would bring things up like this at parties or something, or because I'm a galactic energy, I have a kundalini, a very strong kundalini. So I would kind of play with people's energies at parties. It was just party favors and party tricks at first. I didn't understand the beauty and the responsibility yet. Yeah, it was just, and I would tell people about when I was 14, these aliens came and took me out of my body. And, I got kind of like labeled a little bit, but in good jest. And a lot of people have come and gone. Like, I can be pretty intense. A lot of people feel like when I look in their eyes, I see right through them and through their souls. And quite frankly, so are you able to just stand in your truth when you're with me or not? And because we're all beings of light and everything's a reflection, how people perceive me is typically of where they're on their journey, not a self-reflection. So, but yeah, I was a gamer. I loved, I went to raves. I was in hairdressing and cosmetics and makeup, and I traveled around. I really loved making people feel beautiful and feel wonderful. I was in mindfulness meditation and really aware and teaching people mindfulness meditation by the time I was 22. So it's always been present. But the crystallizing of it wasn't until I got sick in 2014. That's when I had spent so many years just like, not a big deal, and I was repressing and I was seeing and feeling more and more and more. And a lot of children follow me around. I mean, it's no secret. We have Turtle Island is built on a genocide and colonialization and a lot of like child sex trafficking. And I've been gifted for these children in the spirit realm to come and communicate with me. It's been awful, but it's an honor to be able to try to support them transition and hear and feel their pain. So I couldn't ignore these things anymore. And I was in a very toxic situation, which I had co-created. I'm big enough at this stage to understand that. But I couldn't hide it anymore. I couldn't fluff it off anymore. And it just made me so sick. I believe I was in ketosis for about a year.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's when the journey of healing really began. It was no longer a party trick.
Okay. So you seem like you've had a very interesting, rich upbringing. It's always kind of been there. I want to understand what more about how you transitioned into the version of you today. So like now you're a shaman. So it seems like you're integrated. Like, did you go through like a dark night of the soul that kind of was the catalyst for you kind of grounding all of your experience and being able to share it? Yeah. Because usually, entrepreneurs or anybody who's doing, this kind of work or any kind of work where they're helping someone else, they've gone through like a dark night of the soul. So I'm just curious, did you have one of those and share whatever you feel is relevant?
Oh yes, I've actually had more than one. It's so interesting because the dark night of the soul, I feel like, is a journey that continues to come into the circle until you've evolved past that. So I've had more than one, and it was disappointing when I thought I was done with one, and a year later another one would come up. I'm like, no, I thought I was done with this stuff. Why am I in this place again? But the difference was I had wisdom and tools and techniques which I didn't have the previous year. So it just gets better and better. But yeah, I was living in isolation and not communicating with anybody in the world for almost 10 years. I just kind of really came out. I guess I've been sharing my art. I came out with art, but as my authentic self, I really just came out once COVID hit. It felt like ding, ding, ding. I make sense.
What do you feel like? How did COVID help that?
Okay, so I had been seeing everything that was going to happen for years. I was, yeah. So, oh, so many deep layers to that. So, essentially we're in a cycle of humanity, and I was shown in 2009 I went to BC, which are where my indigenous ancestors are from, and when I was there I was staying with an aunt's house, and it progressed, but one day in particular was a big pivot, and I was sitting in the kitchen at her place and I could see around me just this sea. It went on, thousands and thousands of people, like ghosts, like dead spirits, souls, and they were all indigenous people, and they were all around me, this like a sea of them just staring at me, and I was like, what's happening? Oh my God. And I'm breathing into my body, and I heard, it's okay, you're safe, this was meant to happen. So I'm like breathing into that. And I saw this blue light figure, like light blue, and it was a figure, come forward to the window and said, may I come in? And I was like, I felt safe, but also awkward. So I'm like, yes, I invited this person in. And it was this soul, and I opened the door and it walked through me and disappeared. And I turned around and 7 chiefs came forward. And one of them was 7'7" tall, which who I now know is one of my ancestors. And they started drumming all around me. And they started telling me how the world was about to turn and change, and a great flood was coming, and that it was time to awaken the memories of the ancestors within humanity. And that same week, after that happened, that was pretty mind-blowing. I didn't really have any idea what they meant. Like, so convoluted, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then a week later, I was at a friend's house out in New Westminster, and there's this, and she was super tuned into my connection because she was a local historian, and everything I was seeing, she could back up. That's a part of it as well. Like the mentor, the metaphysical mentor who welcomed me in the beginning, the Ojibwe shaman who had welcomed me, this woman in New Westminster. I kept having experiences with people who were information rich, and I would channel things and they would confirm for me their accuracy. So I knew it was so much more than, I knew it wasn't a mental illness, right? Like I knew I was actually tapped into the quantum field, or the source field, and I was tapped into truth. And so about a week later, I was with this woman, the historian, and this little tiny shaman, also a spirit, really tiny, like 4'2", shirtless, but like dressed in some traditional clothing and very decorative with the hair, I forget the word for it at the time, starts crying. I call him the crying shaman. He's like, oh, and he shows me a map. And on this map, he showed me all the places that the flooding would happen and all the safety zones of where to go and build. And so he was showing me that like humanity is going to be wiped out. They're going to be wiped out. And I was like, wow, this is really, really scary. And at this point, I'm realizing I'm seeing truth. So even though it's still convoluted, it's a truth. And I think flight or fight, I was actually active for me for probably and up until recently because of that. So the following stages, I came back to Southern Ontario, and I started channeling other beings. I started channeling the Palladian High Council. I started channeling these different ancient civilizations were telling me to save seeds, save salt, showing me you've got to collect the others that are like you so you can help build a new earth. Like, just these are the languages that they're saying to me. Like, this is so big. Like, at this point, I'm like a stay-at-home mom, like scrambling eggs and going to the library. It was just like a lot of information for me. And you know,
okay, well, so you probably thought you were the last person. Okay, hold
on. But also all these beings around me, it was so unique. It was part of the reason I was kind of like not welcomed into the whole holistic psychic community, was the level of things I was seeing and the level of beings I was connecting with was unheard of, even for seasoned like psychics. And I actually, over time, went towards the alien community because they were so much more open than the holistic community to interstellar connection, right? Like, it was so much more than a rose. Like, a rose is a representation of a portal from Venus. Like, there's so much depth and layers to each minutia of existence. And the cosmic industry, I felt, created an easier platform to communicate that safely.
Yeah, take a sip, because I do have a question. I was gonna say, because of the work that you do and because of who you are, it just seems like your potential clients is a really small niche. Do you feel like most of your clients are the people that come to you for help are people who relate to the ET experience as well, or?
100%, yeah. Like, when I was first trying to share myself with people, I was really trying to teach and convince. I no longer do that. No, now I just, this is where I'm at, and you resonate with me or you don't. And I find, and also within that, I'm very honest. I'm openly vulnerable about my dark night of the souls. I'm openly vulnerable and open about the steps I take to heal them and the things that I come to know because of that. And I embody my truth, and I share that, like, I would say openly, like social media openly, like 10-15% of my life, right? And people just naturally come to me. It's like I put out the call. So it's a lot of my prayer as well, you know, like I lift my energy and anchor my energy into earth. I lift my energy into the sun, and I bring that energy into my heart, and I just put out that frequency. This is who I am, and I'm putting out that call. And those who are meant to be on my journey, we will find each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, I don't feel like this is something you could run Facebook ads for. Like,
no,
no.
I get like, some people will look at it and be like, what are you talking about? And others will be like, she's for me.
That's the one thing I can say. Like, I looked at the content on your Instagram page, and it's like, you know, in 5 seconds if this is where you're supposed to be, yeah, or if you're not supposed to be here, because it's like, it's so niche and it's beautiful. And you know what? Let's take a moment and plug some of what you do. I remember you saying something about shamanic circles, not shamanic circles. You have a sexual shamanic retreat.
Yes. So I call it erotic shaman.
There it is.
And sexuality is a lot of fun. And we get all these beautiful, wonderful sensations in our body, and then we connect with other people and we have these beautiful sensations, and a synergy happens, a chemistry happens. So that same chemistry and synergy is the same velocity or life force that opens up a seed when it's in the ground, or a flower blooms, or a supernova is created. It's the micro and macro of that exchange. And when you have like a sexual life force building up in your kundalini, you can either express that through sexuality, or you can use that life force as a catalyst to heal your body. It's one of our first self-healing modalities is orgasms, and as well as breathing. So I incorporate that natural erotic sensuality that we have, because we're a part of creation, with shamanism in my different galactic cosmic connection. And I've created retreats. They're an evolution. But yeah, I have a retreat and a book that I wrote called Erotic Shamanism, a masterclass. I've also been studying.
Hold on one second, because I know you have like a laundry list, and I want to take my time and go through each one. But can you walk us through, like, if somebody's listening and they're like, that retreat sounds, interesting, like, what experiences can people expect on the retreat?
Okay, so my retreats are a combination. They're usually in the wilderness or way far up north. So you're connecting with the natural elements of Earth. And so deeply, deeply ingrained in all of my work is earth is my body, water is my blood, air is my breath, and fire is my spirit. So connecting with the earth in that way is a huge part of that inner activation and that unlocking of our naturalness. So there's that component. And then there's the community, the food, the sharing. The food and everything is always based on high vibrational food, good energy food, love and light food, always vegan, just I have, for many reasons. So there's the food, the community, like food is thy medicine. So it's like, you really got to take up care of the connectedness of yourself and nature, the connectedness of yourself and your biological connection with food. And then the community, the togetherness, like where you feel that camaraderie of being on the same page. So that's the setting of everything, and that's kind of the glue of everything. And then I take people through a journey through the medicine wheel. So we'll begin with this the south of the medicine wheel, and day one is your inner child. So anything that might be inhibiting you from really connecting with your organic erotic nature and your sovereignty and your part of creation with that erotic nature. And then the next day, and in that will be, I'll do teachings from the book, and then we'll do breathwork ceremony after the teachings to integrate that or move what we need to move. Then, community time, eating food time, and then we'll do like fire ceremony in the evening. And then the next day will be the north, and we connect with our mind and our thoughts and our breath and how they connect with our interconnectedness with ourselves and our environment and our relationships with the environment and people and ourselves. And it just kind of keeps building from there. So basically it's creating that sovereign temple in your own self to be able to fully engage in relationship. So this behind me is a sacred sigil, and most of my workshops are rooted in this. This is the first painting that I did, and this is all about, this is the sacred geometry and the sacred patterns and the compass of helping to heal relationship with self. And so going back to my purpose on earth, we are a kingdom. Humans are a kingdom, just like the forest has a kingdom, the animals are a kingdom, the minerals are a kingdom, humans are a kingdom. We are equally loved and a part of Earth Mother Gaia as all of those aspects. And so the disconnect that's been created through programming and separation and the attack of the Great Circle, that connectedness between us and nature, is basically the first incubation of elevating to being part of that earth family is your inner relationship. So my workshops are about seeing where you are with that inner relationship with yourself so that you can show up. It's very intensive. And then, yeah. And then I take people on, after I do all these teachings. So the teachings are activations. They're based on the laws of the universe, starting from creator. And they incorporate philosophy, math, and shamanism, and quantum interstellar connectivity. And then there'll be one-on-one sessions with me. And this is where I will employ different erotic art forms in terms of helping somebody to crack open their shell. So I use a lot of shibari, like rope tying and rope patterns on people. So this would be typically known in the BDSM community, but if when I channeled this, and I channeled way back, this used to be a common part of medicine before colonialism. So I know that it's sacred. It doesn't just have to be hypersexual and seedy. So what I do is I will sit with that person and I can channel through their light body, that photon body of all the memories they carry from every life they've ever existed. And I can see a point in their existence where they felt like they did not lose, or they felt like they were not in control, or they weren't treated as sovereign, where they started feeling that disconnect between their body's naturalness and the laws of creation. And then I'll receive a pattern. I will tie the person in that pattern, and they're in complete control. Even though I'm tying, I'm called the rigger, would be the term I've learned. Anytime they want to be untied, I'm untying them in a second. They're always in control of this journey. So there's a lot of vulnerability and like checking in and gentleness. So once they're in that position and they're in that tie, for example, one woman, I could see her, a huge boulder falling on her when she was a mermaid at the fall of Atlantis. So I brought her back into that mermaid body position and created this beautiful, intricate pattern. I used my art weaving in it, and brought her back to that moment in time. And I used my shamanic drum journeying. So shamanic drum journeying is quick, rapid drum beats. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that they touch all that light and all that strings of the universe. So you constantly have kind of a view of where you are, and you follow the sound to where you're going and then coming back. So the sound is your bridge. So I will use the shamanic drum journeying, and then I channel and see things, and we'll go back into that time and recreate this story in their Akashic records, recreate this story. And so that they are empowered, that they do come out better in the end. And whether it's that they were healed and able to cross over right away, or whatever that might be for them, or like we stopped the boulder mid falling down, like whatever it might be, it's always intuitive in the moment. And it's very similar to sweat lodge. Like it really is taking you to that state of being a seed and just brand new. It's taking you to that place of the dark night of the soul, that deep shadow within yourself, and giving you, empowering you through your shadow to find your strength within yourself to overcome that shadow. And it's very, very effective. Of course, the relationship is built. We have the safe environment, the acknowledgement, the awareness of each other, the knowing that that they feel safe with me to bring them through this, and that I will untie them at any moment that they're uncomfortable. And then the final day of the retreat, we do a big party and cacao ceremony. I'm really big on dressing up with silks and dresses and looking beautiful and jewelry in the wilderness. Like, why not? And so I bring a bag of dresses because nobody thinks of that. And we get all dressed up and dance and have cacao and drum under the moon. And if it's on the full moon, which it was this year. And so that's kind of the gist of a 4-day retreat. So it's a huge pivot in terms of the healing journey for people. It can knock years off in 4 days of the dark night of the soul journey. And when you discover I'm in a dark place, could take you so long to find that key. And these practices help people find that key like pretty quickly.
Wow. Like just listening to that, it like has me in such a heightened state of being right now. Okay, real quick. Is this for men and women, or is it just for women?
Yes. Yep. It's for men and women. So far, so I just launched erotic shamanism last year. So I have not done a men's retreat yet, though I'm in communication with several men and a friend of mine who's like a really great men's coach, and we're collecting different men who are ready to go there as well. I find that like it's harder to find men who can sit in that environment to be so vulnerable together. It's a little bit thicker of a paradigm to break through. But yeah, well, it's not exclusive to women at all.
That was going to be my next question. I'm wondering, like, because you've dealt with a fair amount of people on your journey, what do you feel like, and maybe you can even tap in now, what do you feel like men are dealing with the collective masculine energy? What do you think it's dealing with in regards to its sexuality versus what is the collective feminine dealing with in regards to sexuality?
Wow. That's a really big question.
Take your time.
Yeah. You know, I still feel there's multiple layers of where men are as a collective on that, and where women are as a collective, you know? Like somebody could look at me and think I'm like this crazy witch, like she's going to an orgy in the woods with that witch again, you know? Or it could be, oh, this is an erotic shamanism, and yes, we're using that sacred energy to move things. And so it really depends where people are on their journey. And I feel that, like, I mean, it'll be interesting to see people coming up in this day and age. Like I have a 19-year-old son, you know, like that generation, but I still feel like a lot of men go through the whole process of, and women, of like promiscuity, sexual taboos, and then, you know, being intimidated by intimacy or different things that they might be sexually interested in, or hyper exposure to sexuality and people and places and things. And so I find that it's really difficult to navigate that and really to quantify what I think that is. But I do know that at this stage of my journey, the vibration that I'm carrying attracts the type of male energy who is ready for connection, who's ready to go. Funny because
sorry, you froze for a second. You said a type of male energy who's ready to go, and then you froze, and I'm like, ready to go
where? Oh my God, I think I froze again. That type of male energy who's ready to evolve into that deeper cosmic connection. And just to kind of like, so, and to tie that in a little bit, what I mean by that deeper cosmic connection is, so our bodies, our orgasms are self-healing modalities. And we've had a society that was very kind of like pop culture, hippie, porn culture, this wave of it. And what's happened is it created ease with the idea of extreme promiscuity. But what's actually happening when this is happening is you're taking on the vibration of whoever you've been with and whatever they need to heal, because you're attracted to people who have some type of healing fragment that mirrors your own. And when we are expressing our orgasms, which is a healing modality, and we're just giving it away, it actually creates a fight or flight reaction in our body and creates an addiction. And addiction and fight or flight is very unsatisfying. So it might be interesting at first, but it would also send a lot of people into the dark night of the soul at some point. So I find when men are going through that transition, or women as well, I really don't think it's gender specific. They're going through that transition. It's really about learning the bridges of connectivity and why we're having that sexual connection with somebody. And once you're able to break that mold and actually have a deep connection with somebody on a cosmic level, you start having a cosmic orgasm together. You're able to transcend healing in the ethers together through your orgasmic quality. And again, it's bringing you to that energy that a flower blooms or a star is born. And so that's kind of my medicine to help people through that transition of just giving their power away, giving their body away, giving their energy away, giving their healing away, taking on everybody else, into identifying their self, and then using that self-sovereignty and that identity to make deeper connection with people who are actually aligned with them and not just hot.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because I think that a lot of people can take that in a very specific direction. So I want to even get even more clear. Would you say then that we should be seeking to find or to connect with people who are on a similar healing journey sexually, or should we be looking to find wholeness and then connecting with people who are have a healthy sexual have a healthy sexuality?
I would say both are relevant depending on where you are in the journey. Like, I think when you're first discovering that you want something deeper, you are going to search for it outside of yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. But ultimately, you need to be the vibration of what you want, and whatever's meant for you is just a magnet. Like, what you are searching for on a soul level is searching for you. And so it's really your sovereignty, your healing, your self-healing, your traumas, all these things, your inner work, raising your vibration, purging things that don't fit into your biochemistry anymore. And then you become the vibration of what you want to be, and what's meant for you just finds you. It's almost like impossible for it not to. It's like these like spheres or orbs that are like finding each other, ready to create like a mitosis of the universe. And so there are different levels of fulfillment, different levels of the journey. I would say they're both relevant, and one is a catalyst for the other.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that provides so much clarity on that. So, okay, we're at 52 minutes, and I'm thinking I could definitely ask a million more questions, but I'm wondering if I have enough time. Before we go on, let's do this. Is there anything that you want to plug? Like, do you have any retreats ongoing right now? Any programs, any webinars? Like, I want to give you an opportunity to share that so that we can, not leave that left out.
Okay, well, this January, I'm launching my Patreon page, and I'm going to be, I worked with, thank you. I worked with this amazing, such a professional videographer, Greg, and he owns a company called Genie Lamp Productions. And we filmed my workshop that I co-created with the universe called Quantum Holographic Reiki. The name also co-created with the universe. And it's essentially alien mind technology to teach each individual to biohack the matrix with internally and externally and step into their power. And my hashtag is the Call of the Celestial Lions, as well as Call of the Galactic Monks and Call of the Star Jaguars. It's a light warrior tribe or gathering. So my level 1 is the language, the tools, the ceremonies, how to biohack the matrix within yourself, how to transcend and purge and move things that are not serving your body, that you hold in your bones, your blood, your brain, your heart. Teaching you everything that I know, because it's not, I may know what I know, but it's not my information. It belongs to the universe. And then from there, I teach you how to self-heal, heal your space, heal your community, friends, family, and then planet. And then as a collective, my goal is to connect more and more people with this so that light warriors are all using the same template, because it's the math of creation, which I'm teaching. And so that's level 1. It's coming this January. And I've already taught it twice now. I've had big groups, amazing, amazing feedback from every single student. It's just been such an honor. And every way that I dreamed of impacting people has impacted them and then some. And so there's a lot of testimonials for that, which I'm also very honored. And then I'm also, presently I'm at the Toronto Visionary Art Show, and it's there's a virtual gallery online as well, and there's some like very like Chris Dreyer is in there, some really beautiful, really well accoladed visionary artists are in there, and I'm also in their art gallery on 333 Bloor Street in Toronto. And then from there, I'm going to be launching some NFTs this year. The retreats are coming up. Everything's coming up. More classes, more workshops. I've yet to decide on location. So I usually will put out a notice for retreats come March.
Let me know about those NFTs. Because I was scrolling I didn't even realize how far I was scrolling. Like I just kept on scrolling on your Instagram, and I'm like the art, it kind of puts you in a beautiful trance, like a trance that you want to be in. Yeah. And it's like, I'm like, this needs to be an NFT. Like, yeah. This is why NFT was created for stuff like this. So I'm super excited.
For something like this. Like, oh, when I first put my art out and put myself out there, I always thought I would be like a cartoon or a video game. Like I never thought I would be like actually face to face having a conversation. And I was also afraid of people seeing me because my connection was so out there. I'm not afraid anymore. But yeah, so all of my art is my experiences of the cosmos, and they're all activations and unlocks to connect people with that invisible field of truth all around us from the beginning of time. Yeah.
So, oh my God, I had like 2 questions come and go there. Give me 1 second. Yes, your art. Do you feel like your art is, I always ask this because usually the type of artists that I talk to are artists that have something unique, or I feel is unique. And I think you're one of those artists. And so I'm wondering is, do you appropriately price your art?
I mean, I feel like the world market is shifting right now. And I think that even the word appropriate is shifting. So I'm right now in kind of an incubating stage of reframing what that even means. You know, when you're working with the whole cryptocurrency market, it's so different than the physical market. Is it appropriate? To be honest with you, I can't really answer that question. I just feel that I'm such a student with that right now as I incubate and get ready to relaunch.
Beautiful. Well, all the best and congratulations with that. I feel like one of the reasons why I'm going to say this really quickly. One of the reasons that I even invited you to be on this podcast was because there's just the spiritual community, and those are the people in the community will be able to understand where I'm going with this. The spiritual community, as it is in Toronto, it's a beautiful thing, but there's also a shadow side to it. And so it's like, especially for people coming in, right? You got to be able to understand and sift through and be able to separate what's actually valuable for you to experience so that you can evolve, and what is just there as kind of like a misdirect, right? Because there's a lot of fluff in this market. So I saw you and we talked, and I was like, man, here is a woman who's having amazing spiritual experiences and is grounded enough to express them, and is just like is real. And I was like, I can't even believe this is even happening, because there's probably 5 of you in Toronto. I'm not even joking. I've been in like almost every corner, and there's not very many. So at least that are doing it publicly. I'll say that. I'm sure there's a lot of them in hiding, you know, little Buddhas, you know, meditating somewhere. But yes, I want to ask my final question, and then we're going to wrap it here. I'll have all your Instagram and Facebook links in the episode description, stuff like that. So Ariane, thank you so much. Like we talked for an hour and it scratched. It's probably like the surface, like maybe 10% of what I really wanted to get into. Cause it's like your energy is, I don't know if you know this, your energy is like, it's very expansive. And so like, I have this insatiable curiosity for everything that is, you know, a part of existence. And so like chatting with you has really, you know, shown me that like, there's so much more. There's so much more that we could be diving into. So thank you for bringing your presence to the podcast. I appreciate that. Okay, so that being said, my final, and I'm excited to hear how you answer this question because this is like a super spiritual question, or maybe it's not. I don't know, but we'll see. My final question is, and I'm going to ask it in a bunch of different ways so you can kind of understand where I'm coming from, and you can answer one of the questions or you can answer accumulation of the questions. So what is infinity? How do you experience infinity? What does infinity feel like? What does infinity look like? What is infinity?
So infinity is, it can be endless or it can just be this now. So for me, what's infinite is the journey of discovering what is now. So as much as all of this information and this vastness, it can just go on and on and on because we're on a holographic universe made of fractals, and each fractal has a fractal. So conceptually, it just doesn't end. It is infinite. It's endless, and that endlessness is a loop. So you can come back from a different angle. So I think that what's the most infinite part of infinity is that you always have to be in the power of now because it doesn't end. And the point of creationism is to be present in what we're experiencing. The creator didn't create us so that we could be channeling and seeing this infinite universe constantly. We're created for experiences of this now. And I hope that answered the question.
No, there is no right answer. There's no
right answer. Well, you know, it's so funny because you're like, that's the whole point of the teachings that I do, is that it doesn't end. So we do need perimeters. And I think that within those perimeters, you can just find your own safe navigation without taking away from what your soul's journey is, because it is infinite. But you have to be present with your now. Otherwise, how infinite it is can just dilute all your experiences.
Wow. Like, do you understand? I've been trying to articulate that forever. Look, let me first be accountable to that, because that was my experience for a long time. Like, for a long time, you know, you tap into these, you know, higher dimensional energies, whatever you want to call them. You tap in to the depth that is within us all. And if you just keep going, you can just keep going. And then you can get to the point where you're so far deep that you disassociate with the three-dimensional experience, right? And it's like, it can almost become like insignificant. It pales in comparison. And so what you just said really beautifully encapsulates what every spiritual investigator needs to be cautious about. Yeah. So thank you for communicating that. Oh my God, thank you so much. That's gonna be it for our episode today, guys. Ariane,
this was so fun, Jordan.
Oh my God, I appreciate you so much. I'm gonna have a lot to meditate on tonight, that's for sure.